Bibliophiles of the internet, today I'm going to share my favorite books of 2021. In case you're new here, I do this format every year. I don't curate or filter down my list. I feature every single one of my favorite books from the past year in chronological order. It doesn't matter if they were published in 2021 or not. If I personally read something for the first time in 2021, it counts. In these videos, I don't give synopses or share my in-depth thoughts on every single book. I will just be sharing a sentence or two about what each story has taught me or what it has brought into my life. So with that said, let's get started. First up, we have Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. Because guilt can be a monster of our own creation, but we can gain power over it if we put in the work to extract joy from pain, hope from hardship, and love from loss. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Because every profound moment in our lives is a consequence, the natural result stemming from a perfectly imperfect storm of failures, people, and choices. Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. Because being given permission to exist is such a rare and powerful thing, and it reminds us that the truest parts of ourselves can never actually be erased. From the Desk of Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. Because even in a world that is complicated, unfair, unjust, and full of so much pain, everyone still deserves a chance to show the goodness in their hearts. Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. Because even chaos yields to greater forces, and two of the greatest and most inevitable forces on Earth are change and chance. 1500 Miles from the Sun by Johnny Garzavilla. Because love is incredibly powerful, but it's also unsustainable on its own. Love can bring us closer to people and bridge immeasurable distances, but it can't make up for everything when it's not supported by deliberate action. The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimons. Because queer people don't owe anyone their identities, and coming out should not be a prerequisite to identity, authenticity, community, or respect. We don't have to do anything to be deserving of those things. Empire of Sand and Realm of Ash by Tasha Suri. Because staying true to yourself is something that we often have to fight for every single day. And part of that fight is destroying what we were taught to believe about ourselves and being bold enough to imagine and fashion our own ways of existing. The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Maggie Takuda Hall. Because our entire world is made of stories, and the truest stories we possess are a kind of magic that can very literally shape the world around us. Between Perfect and Real by Ray Stovey. Because in a world that gives us reasons to fear for ourselves before giving us reasons to love ourselves, the ability to understand and define what is real about ourselves is a near sacred choice that only we get to make. Ceci Rios and the Desert of Souls by Kayla Rivera. Because it actually takes an incredible amount of strength to be vulnerable, to stay hopeful, and to care about other people, and to believe otherwise is to do ourselves a disservice. The Witch King by H.E. Edgman. Because anger is both sacred and necessary. Anger is just another part of love and humanity and community, and it's a way for us to articulate that we know we deserve better for ourselves and we are not afraid to fight for it. Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. Because as much as we like to think otherwise, our journeys are not solely defined by the good things, the triumphs, and the successes. Our mistakes and our failings are not something to be ashamed of because they are what make our journeys beautiful and unique. The Ghosts We Keep by Mason Deaver. Because grief especially is not a convenient one-size-fits-all experience, and we are all deserving of the space that we need to fully understand and express our emotions. May the Best Man Win by Z.R. Eller. Because it should be okay that the process of coming into ourselves and coming to the choices we make is not always palatable, easy, logical, or clean-cut. We deserve space to make mistakes, to learn from them or not, and just be our messy selves. The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen. Because as much as we don't like to think so, stories, by definition, change. And it's incredible that stories don't always have to be told the same way to have the same kind of impact. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Because we all contain the capacity to do more than just survive. We have an inherent right not only to live, but to be seen, to be respected for our power, and to be great. 3 Keys and Room to Dream by Kelly Yang. Because community doesn't just have to mean people who look like you or who share the same experiences, but rather the people in your life who you can help and reach. In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. Because the truest parts of ourselves that we cannot change or hide are not things to be feared, but rather things that we should make space to understand and embrace. Ace by Angela Chen. Because language is not about exclusion or imposing hard limits. Language exists first and foremost to serve us in naming and understanding our experiences, helping us find community, and allowing us to make meaningful connections. Boys Run the Riot by Gaku Keto. Because there is value in being different, in being bold enough to exist in a way that hasn't been imagined before, and in blazing your own path from the margins. Hola Papi by John Paul Brammer. Because the past can be both a foundation upon which the present is made possible and also a heavy and convoluted mystery that only reveals itself to you once you have the experience and language to understand it. Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson. Because joy is not something that we have to earn or justify. It's something we should seize as often as we can. Joy is something we deserve and that we are worthy of experiencing. Too Bright to See by Kyle Lukoff. Because it takes an incredibly strong person to manifest a version of themselves and a way of living for themselves that no one else sees. The Queer Principles of Kit Webb by Kat Sebastian. Because we all deserve to know what it feels like to have people who want us in their lives and who make us feel valued and seen and precious. The President and the Frog by Carolina de Robertes. Because in those moments when we believe ourselves to be alone, we are often made to feel that way. The truth is that we're all connected, and by being purposeful in nurturing that connection, that is how we can manifest change. The Four Profound Weaves by R.B. Lemberg. Because every journey we undertake in life is us giving ourselves permission to change. And change is a complex, vital, immutable part of life for every single person who exists. Like a Love Song by Gabriela Martins. Because we shouldn't have to erase parts of ourselves to be accepted or celebrated. Making an effort to reconnect with what we value about ourselves will only ever be a strength and not a weakness. Dragon Blood Ring by Amparo Ortiz. Because realizing that you can't make it on your own doesn't make you weak. Even heroes, even the strongest among us, are humans who are going to need help sometimes. Obi is Man Enough by Skylar Baylor. Because it's important to not only imagine our futures, but then to be brave enough to live out those futures for ourselves. The Red Deal, compiled by the Red Nation. Because we don't actually have to invest further in systems and structures that are already broken if we want to have a future where we are free of those constraints. Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley. Because when it comes to systemic injustice, we can't expect the powers that be to do the necessary work. Any solution affecting the community should come from within and because of the community itself. Right Where I Left You by Julian Winters. Because no matter who you are, how old you are, or where you are in your journey, none of us have all the answers. Life is a constant process of figuring things out and learning new things about ourselves, and that's okay. Tim Tamaro and the Subterranean Heartsick Blues by H.S. Valley. Because we often forget that we don't have to completely understand something about ourselves or about the world around us beforehand in order for it to awaken very real, very visceral feelings within us. Light from Uncommon Stars by Riika Aoki. Because the truth is that music is what happens between the notes. That sound is merely vibrations echoing in an empty space. And what we often understand as beauty comes from that space, that absence, that darkness. And finally, The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. Because even though the world won't always see us in the way that we want, deciding who we are, what we shape ourselves into, and what we believe in will always be our choice. So there you have it. Those are all my favorite books from 2021. If any of these made your list, I would love to know your thoughts on them, or feel free to comment down below sharing some of your favorite books from 2021. But that is everything I had to share for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.